Hello, beautiful soul, and welcome to the Sangha Show, a space for those who are devoted to the awakening of humanity. We'll explore what it means to live a spiritually guided, purpose-driven life that's rooted in harmony with the planet. Through soulful conversations, transformational teachings, and stories from conscious creators, we'll dive into what it really looks like to live from embodied truth, to serve from your heart, and to reimagine a world full of wonder, beauty, and awe. If you're here to leave a legacy of abundance on earth, you're in the right place. So before we begin, let's take a moment to arrive together. Gently close your eyes. Inhale deeply through the nose and exhale slowly through the mouth, letting go of anything that you're carrying from the day, allowing your body to soften and receive the wisdom that's about to be shared. Feel yourself come home to the present moment, and let's begin. Hey, you guys, I'm your host, Kristi Worful, and today I'm here with a special guest, my sister. I'm so excited that we get to share our stories together. I feel like you're one of the people that I can share the most authentically with, and I've never had to hide anything from you. And some of the vulnerabilities that we're going to get to bring out today are going to come straight from our hearts and from our own private discussions for everyone else to hear. Exactly. We're putting it all out there. Gina is the founder of the Mastering Mindfulness Institute. And today her and I are going to be sharing some of our stories on what it took for us to transition out of feeling pressured to make really big life decisions or to really get where we wanted to be, to get to somewhere that we thought we had to be. And I wanted to start this discussion off. I want to see if you can take me back, because I know you and I have had so many intimate conversations about different times in our life when we bumped up against these pressures and what it feels like to have to make a decision. So I want to see if you can take me back to a time where it really felt real to you, where you were trapped in this sense of indecision and you felt pressure and you really had no idea which way to go.
Oh, yeah. I think for me, that was one of the most challenging, really hardest times of my life. And I was just sharing this with you the other day that when I was in that really difficult time and everyone around me wanted to help me make a decision, you were the one person who took a different approach. And it was one of the most powerful, life-changing lessons I ever had. And that was at a time where I was in a really serious, committed relationship for a few years. And I had this time come up where I wasn't 100% sure if our relationship should continue. And I had this awareness, and my partner and I at the time started talking about, should we break up? Should we not? And I think for a lot of people going through relationships, a lot of people hit that question. Do we go deeper into commitment? I'm getting to a place in my life where the pressure is starting to build. I'm 35. I'm thinking about a family. I'm thinking about kids. And it's a very different experience from being in my 20s, where it was like, you have decades to figure this out. I really hit that pressure point of also where my partner was like, I want to start thinking about big life decisions. I want to be married. I want to have kids. I don't want to miss the boat on that. So any uncertainty is like, you better at some point
The
really
clock's
make a dec-
ticking.
Yeah, the clock is ticking. What do you want to do with this? And the pressure kept building and the pressure kept building. And once I had this awareness that I wasn't really sure, I remember having the people who I really care about around me. And I'm like, I'm in this place of indecision. And I had so many people who were close friends who really wanted to support me and do the best that they could to help ease my mind. And they said, Gina, you're already having doubts. Just move on. Your decision is done. Why drag this out any longer? And the pressure of I don't know felt so painful. I think that's what created the suffering around my experience was I don't know. I don't know. I don't know. And
And I
this,
should know.
and I should know. And everyone telling me, if you pull this out any longer, you're just wasting time. And then there was this fear of, am I wasting time? But I'm not really sure. And a really pivotal point for me was talking to you. And I remember I just broke down crying. You were just like, how are you doing? In the sweetest way that you always do. What's going on? What's coming up for you? How are you doing? And I just busted out crying. And I was like, I just can't make a decision. I don't know. I truly don't know what is the right thing for me right now. And I was like, I just don't know. And you're like, can you just still be in a place of love while you're in I don't know? And I was like, well, I guess, but what if I'm in I don't know forever? And you were like, then I'll just be here for you while you're in I don't know. And I was like, that's an option? Everyone was like, well, here's the pros of this relationship. Here's the cons. You need to come to clarity as soon as possible so you can move forward with your life. And I don't know. I don't know. And you were the one person who you were like, it doesn't matter. It's okay if you're in I don't know. What a beautiful time to be in contemplation. And I was like my whole body, my whole system was like, I can, like, I have permission to do that? I can? That's an option? Option 3 is I'm allowed to just be where I am? And when I sink into that, that was the one thread that I held on to that was like, I can have the permission to be in I don't know, in contemplation. And I shared that with my partner when he wanted to know, what is our future? And I said, I understand if you want to know what our future is. But what feels very true for me right now is that I'm in a space of I don't know, and I need space for myself. And we had the most beautiful year together, both of us being in I don't know and answering these questions on our own together. And we had the most beautiful year coming to a place of at some point separating, but I never regretted for a second that we took an entire year to answer that question. And I think some of the suffering that happens around our experience or in relationships is, you hear people say, oh, I drug out that relationship a year or 2 years longer than what it needed to be, or the breakup was so long. And there's so much judgment around that time. But we had the most beautiful, natural unfolding of being in contemplation around our relationship together. And it was the greatest gift to relax my nervous system that I don't know is okay sometimes.
Yeah. I just want to have everyone, myself, and our listeners take a deep breath into that and really let that sink in. That it's okay to rest in I don't know. It's okay to feel good in I don't know. And one thing that I noticed that you mentioned about your friends is I think it was just revealing their discomfort and their attachment to forcing decisions and to being somewhere, be doing something. And that need to always be doing something or always be making a decision really rushes us past the stillness and the spaciousness of life. We never have time to exhale,
Yeah.
to just breathe.
And it's like you miss all of the wisdom that is coming out from being in I don't know, all the options that are available to you and those fine tuned messages of what you're feeling. But if you jump to a decision because you're trying to just get to a decision, you miss all of that that's inside of I don't know.
Yeah. It's been my experience that life is like a scavenger hunt. And every moment, every experience has a new piece of awareness for us. And if we go right to the end to make the decision, we miss all of the pieces that create this beautiful, creative, explorative life process. And witnessing you and your partner go through that journey that year together was one of the most beautiful and sacred demonstrations of a relationship that I have ever witnessed. And I got to see a lot of the behind the scenes. I can't imagine if you guys had let the fear and the discomfort and that anxiousness, like, I need to know if you're committed to me. I need to know if we can make a decision now. We need to know where we're going or what does our future hold? Are we getting married or are we separating? And that pressure creates a lack of presence with one another. And like you guys weren't even pressuring each other to come to a conclusion. It was a true, honest, open exploration and a deep desire to know yourselves and to know each other and to know the truth of that connection.
It is one of the greatest gifts that you can have from the people around you. I learned so much about unconditional love from my partner, who was also like, I will still love you while you're in contemplation, even though I'm sure there was a deep part of his nervous system that wanted to know, do you want to be together or not? But to still say, even though there's a part of my nervous system that probably really wants answers, I love you enough to give you the space, even if it takes a year to be in contemplation to really feel what's right for you. It's the greatest gift when other people trust in the space that you need.
Wow. What do you think that shifted for you being loved like that and being given that spaciousness?
I felt that it really taught me like the depths of what unconditional love really feels like. That,
Mm.
like, even though I'm sure it was such a difficult time and so much hurt and sadness that we might be coming to places of truth that are really hard to talk about, but that he could still be so fierce and unwaveringly like, I love you enough for you to find your own truth in whatever that is right now. And how many times I said, I know you really want an answer, but and it's okay if you need to leave now because I'm not giving you an answer. But my truth is I really don't know. And that's so understandable when some people are like, well, I am ready for a yes or a no. That doesn't honor me to stay, right? There might be times when staying for somebody else's figuring out, and I don't know, might not honor you. You might
Right.
need to leave. I just felt so deeply unconditionally loved, like I had never been before, that someone wasn't trying to manipulate or push my decision faster than what it needed to be.
Or convince, or let me show you all the reasons why we need to stay together.
Yeah,
Please let me prove to you.
it was completely unattached. Like, I'm here for you. And he said this to me when we decided not to be together. He said, I would love to be together. I trust you so much. He goes, your intuition is always right. Your feelings are so true that if you don't feel that this is right, I trust your intuition and I trust your feelings. It
Whoa.
was like, wow. He honors giving up our relationship, that he trusts in my own intuition and my own feelings about where I personally am, where our relationship and our dynamic is. He trusts it so deeply that even though he wants to be together so much, he will also support our breakup with love.
I got to really see that and experience the support even in the process of you guys separating. They got to experience a conscious uncoupling practice and severed the energetic ties in such a loving and devotional way to the journey of life, like really devoted to the journey of life and the unfolding of life. And like, okay, this is where we part ways.
Yeah. And many times I was in a place of, I just need to be in a chapter of contemplation around what's right for me in my own life.
One of the things that I also wanted to bring up that we didn't really mention in this conversation that but that you and I had talked about previously is that there was a knowing that you did it was right for you at the time when you decided to stay in that relationship. Even though you were in I don't know, it felt right to be there in the now.
Yes.
How did it come in through a feeling? What was the prompting for that?
What I started to notice was the fine tuning difference of the way that my heart sounds and the way that my mind sounds. And it got confusing because my mind would get very afraid and loopy. And so I started to practice moving my awareness down into my heart and the first answer that comes through my heart, just checking in on what that is. And it took me a while to learn how to trust that because then the mind goes back to logic. Oh, but there's these things and giving me a list of all these different things and reasons. But something that was a really helpful guide for me was I would just close my eyes and say, "Do you know that this is right for you long term?" And my heart might say, "I don't have that answer." And I close my eyes and say, "Does this feel like this is where you should be right now?" And when we were together, my heart was like, "Yes." And then my mind might go into like, "But why? But da da da, yes and no." And my heart didn't need to give whys or reasons. It was just a very simple yes or no. And I could ask, "Should I be here right now?" And it would say yes. "Do I know in the future?" "No." It's like, "Okay,
Mm.
what is right for me?" And I could keep checking in on that all throughout the way. "What is right for me right now? Do I need space right now?" "Yes." "Okay, I need to tell him that then. I need space right now." Even if I didn't have really clear answers on why.
I love that trusting your feeling is enough. Well, it wasn't for a long time, yeah. So, I wrote I wrote a poem a while back. It was actually around that same time, and one of the lines says that presence is a portal to the heart and a journey of the soul.
Mm.
And when we can really sink into presence with ourselves, not the racing mind or all of the options or all of the opportunities, but true presence with nothing going on up here and stillness. And it does drop you right into your heart and how quickly that gets us to the path of our soul.
And that's all that we can truly count on is what is true for me right now in this moment. We can try to predict what we're going to be feeling or wanting in the future, but all that is really truth is just what is here right now. What is most alive for me in this moment?
You know what's so funny is I had a woman one time that came to me in my practice and she said, I've been working on quantum timelines and I really want to get to this future self.
Mhm.
And I thought it was so interesting. And I said, well, presence is the gateway to the exponential future. If you keep trying to get to the next step, but you haven't fully mastered every aspect of the present moment and you bypass all those little details, those are bypassing little lessons. And then you skip to the next step, but you don't have all of the wisdom. And then try to do that same thing again and you try to future yourself to the next step or the next part of the journey or the next phase of life that you're trying to get to, but you haven't really got all of the lessons of that level. Your states of consciousness are actually staying very similar throughout each phase of your life. Where if you master the present moment, you actually evolve your perceptions, your awareness, you're collecting all of this wisdom, and it exponentially changes the way that you enter that next phase. Instead of repeating life journeys or life experiences through the same lens, you're actually creating evolution. And that presence creates infinite potential.
Absolutely. How do you feel like this has shown up for you? Do you feel like because you seem very confident in your decision making? It feels like you always have. I've known you since the beginning of time, and it feels like you've always been like, this is what I'm doing. This is where we're going. When it needs a change, I change. Does this feel relatable to you?
I've slowed down and developed a depth of understanding where before it was like, as soon as I made the decision, I moved. Where now I can actually get comfortable. It's almost like enjoying the ride. A very relatable thing for me right now, where I've had a very different parallel, is that when I moved to Utah, I knew immediately that I was going to move. I was like, I've been wanting to move to the mountains. There's no point in sticking around. And I closed my chapter in Michigan and opened a brand new chapter. And it was like, boom, done. Happened so fast. And it felt easy. It felt right. It felt seamless. But what I didn't recognize is that I had a bunch of open loops or parts of that chapter in Michigan that I hadn't fully understood and closed and resolved. And as a result, when I slowed down enough and I really sank into some of the healing and some of the self awareness and understanding, I had to reopen a lot of those chapters and go back. There's a concept in somatic coaching, somatic therapy, that talks about sustaining your energy in all these phases. And so it's very cyclical in nature, like the seasons. So you'll have a springtime where you're just planting seeds and you're just starting out and you're having these little sprouts in your life. And for me, I noticed everyone has a different capacity to sustain them in different seasons. And I noticed that my capacity to sustain a winter season was almost non existent. As soon as I knew a relationship wasn't right for me, I'd end it instantly. As soon as I knew that I was going to move out of Michigan, I made the decision and I committed. And what I realized was I was so uncomfortable with the closure of things. I didn't want to feel uncomfortable feelings. I didn't want to talk about why I didn't want to be with someone. It was so uncomfortable for me to look someone in the eye and go, I don't know if we're right together. And I'm going to sit with that. Mm-mm. And I realize that now in myself that I have such a patience for that part of the process to go, I don't know. But before I was so uncomfortable because I think I had a lot of value in my identity as being a forward charger and a decision maker and a confident person and a powerful person. Being an I don't know went against my identity. That was terrifying for me.
Which is very contrasted, though, to your last relationship, though, in your breakup, because I remember seeing you go through this process over quite a bit of time, many months. And I remember seeing you and kind of almost thinking that you would be responding in a way that you used to, of just like kind of making a decision and asking you where you're at. And I remember you just saying, I'm just spending time with my feelings. I'm like, wow, like who is this human being? For months, I'm just spending time just feeling my feelings.
Yeah. And I actually really dedicated myself to the process of winter in that relationship, into the closing. And before the relationship officially ended, and asking myself, what do I need to do to energetically come to closure? What are all of the parts and pieces? Can I sit in so much presence with what is going on that I can feel all of the open loops and the hurt or the love, and really sinking into the exploration of every lesson that was unfolding and finally getting myself to a place where I could go, wow, I can see so much beauty in the different facets of that relationship. What would I like to carry forward?
I think that as women, there's so much guidance from our feelings, from our intuition and our feelings. And it seems like that part of us needs space where we're saturated in a culture of logic and efficiency and this idea that we are running out of time. Time is limited, time is money, time is everything. And this pressure of we're running out of time. How do you make decisions as fast as possible using logic? And logic might not always be the deeper answer.
First of all, logic is amazing for strategy, but relationships are about connection. The heart really tells us what feels good, and it aligns us to the truth of connection.
Mm.
I work with entrepreneurs all the time that they're like, I constructed this business, this idea, this vision, and now I have to figure out how to fit myself into it. And it doesn't work because I didn't consider how I was going to feel when I created that strategy.
Mm.
I didn't consider how it was going to affect my physical body or my family. I just saw the
Numbers.
strategy. I saw the profit model.
Yeah.
I saw how productive I had to be and I just went all in on it.
It's so funny to hear you say this because I follow on Instagram some very well-known, business people, and they all seem to say, in business, I don't care how you feel. It's not about how you feel. The data doesn't lie. You follow the data, you follow numbers. And I understand the rationale behind that, but I think what you're saying, there's a ton to that of why a lot of people end up hitting those numbers in business and then asking, why do I feel unfulfilled?
We are literally designing things that you have to excuse a part of yourself from that every day.
Mm.
And a part of you can't exist there to the point where we don't want to participate in it anymore. I think we're just becoming aware of our need for emotions to be a part of our everyday experience. We're just seeing the value in how the journey feels. We're seeing the value in fulfillment. We're seeing the value in purpose. Have you had any experiences of strategic decision making versus spacious, intuitive decision making in your own company?
I really like using different types of ways to make decisions. And so I've incorporated a lot of those things where you use logic, you also use intuition and giving yourself the right timing in the right space. I had a really big breakthrough around this, I think, last year. It was around November. And around November and December, it intuitively felt like a time to slow down in business. But my mind was like, we got to keep trucking forward. We're preparing for the new year. We got to, be in creation mode. And I remember feeling this pressure to like have this forward drive, but I didn't have the clarity. And so I was like, do I hire a strategic advisor? Do I hire, what do I need to do to keep this forward pushing momentum? And I had these different like business advisors around me who were like, we got to prepare for 2024. We got to set the goal numbers for Q1, Q2. And I was like, I'm not prepared with all of that. And I remember you and I talking, and I was saying, should I hire this lady to help me push forward with strategy and get clarity? And you said, you can do that. But what if you just use this time for really deep listening, for you to really get clear on what you desire and let that be the seed of what you want to create? Because it feels maybe like there's an anxious energy of like, I need to push forward. There's kind of like threads of fear in it. And I was like, a time for deep listening. What if I did that? And I used those 2 months of November and December, even though there were parts of me that really wanted to drive forward, to sink into this really deep listening for something that I could be creating a career for the rest of my life. That time at your retreat gave me the spaciousness and the ability to connect to what would feel so fulfilling to me in my work. And I don't think I would have landed on that if I would have filled that space with chaos and people's advice and strategy and charge forward. And now I feel like that planted the architecture of everything that I'm doing this year. I'm making sure that it's in alignment with something that feels deeply fulfilling to me instead of just this is what everyone told me to do and filling it up with chaos. And if I didn't take that time, I think I would have been building based on the wrong things.
Yeah. And the perspective that you had was, I just can't imagine letting go of the way that I'm doing things now to step into this, even though this is 100% my dream life, what I want to be doing.
Hmm.
And now you've already rolled it out and everything's underway.
All
The
of it.
program that you wanted to create, the retreats that you wanted to create, everything that you decided and got clarity on is already now launched. And we're 7 months in. It didn't even take a year for you to live into.
And I think that I charged forward on that in such a different way. If even if it was the same answer, but if somebody else was like, here's your strategy, here's what you should do, here's the best thing for your business, that just feels like such a different, like, questioning where because I had the space and I really felt in my heart this would be my dream life that I created, now I'm in this forward momentum with this deep connection to my heart. And it feels like now I am in a very powerful forward momentum from a very different place.
I love that.
Mhm. Honestly, the retreat was to me, it's one of those moments that reminds me of, like, the arrow. We think that it's wasting time, but it's really like that pause. The pause is like the arrow where you pull back to launch forward. It was like
Mm,
I invested maybe a month or so of very quiet, connected time, of not creating chaos in my work, slowing down, really listening, and it was like, "Oh my gosh, I'm losing money, I'm losing time, I'm not doing anything." But it was that investment. I usually mentioned to you before that it was so powerful to me that I was like, even if I'm not in a place of, I don't know, fear, I should still take time out of my life to almost be in that kind of childlike place of like, "Oh, am I on track?" And see if I need to course correct.
mhm, mhm. Yeah.
Again.
Something that's been coming up for me recently has actually been a knowing that a piece of my heart and soul really reside in Costa Rica. And I've been traveling there now for the past few years. And at the beginning of the year, as I was leaving, because at the end of the year, we spent like a month there together and we really got to sink in. And when I was leaving and coming back, I felt this anxiety to make sure I reached out to everyone that I met there to keep the connections alive. And even at times, I could feel that those connections were forced. And when I really sat with that for a minute, I was like, hold on. I have a deep desire and longing to live and know the land in Costa Rica and to really let my life unfold there. And that desire is all I need to allow the universe to start orchestrating my life toward that direction. Whatever people, whatever places, whatever opportunities. And now I just get to know that my desire itself is the magnet that brings it all here. I don't have to do anything with that desire. I don't have to anxiously strive for it. I don't have to control or manipulate my life or my situation. I can just trust that my desires are enough.
Mm. And then it all comes together
It
at some point,
always does.
trusting in the timing.
Now I can just sit in that I don't know when I'm going to have a home or a part time place in Costa Rica, but I just know that it's going to come.
Mm.
And I'm just going to relax and love every minute of my
Wow.
house in the mountains in Utah and of the friends that I have there and the amazing life that I've built. And I can go, someday I'm going to get a bridge to Costa Rica in whatever form that looks like. But until that day, I'm just going to really enjoy every minute that I have here.
Mhm. And you don't have to know how that's going to happen. It will just happen when the timing is right.
Mhm.
Wow. How does that feel in your body?
Now I can relax. What
Mhm.
do I need to do to relax into this? Oh, I need to know that I belong everywhere.
And trust that I'm right where I need to be. As long as I keep tuning down into my heart, what is right for me right now? That's all the information I need.
Yeah. And what was so fascinating is right before we decided to do this podcast, you and I were on a road trip and I found this incredible poem that I wanted to read and leave our listeners with. There will come a time when you are unsure, unsure of the next step. Do not be afraid to hold yourself close and welcome that stillness. Do not be afraid to wait. We tend to panic and run when the future looks daunting, too terrified of the passing time to stop long enough for the mist to settle and a path to form. So terrified of being left behind that we sprint past the moments that call for a pause within. And that was by L.E. Bowman.
So beautiful.
Thank you so much for being with me and being so vulnerable. It's been so meaningful to have really deep conversations on this podcast because I think that's where the real truth happens. The real change is in the depths of what we share together. And I just wanted to know if for our listeners, how they can connect with you and if there's any projects that you're working on right now. Do you want to let everybody know what you're up to and what you're offering to the world?
And the world of health is what mastering mindfulness is about, is tuning in and feeling what's right for me so that we can trust our own bodies and really connect with our food and our bodies on a deeper level. And so those programs that I do are called Mastering Mindfulness. I'm on Instagram, Gina.Worful, talking about all that kind of stuff.
All right. I'll post all of her information in the show note below. And you guys can check her out and give her a follow because her content is just divine. Oh my goodness. If you want to reach a place of stillness, just follow her Instagram and try some of the practices that she shares. It's really amazing.
Oh, thank you.
Love you.
Love you so much.
Thank you for sharing this moment with me on the show. I'm hoping that something you heard today will root deeper into your heart and ripple out into your life in ways you can't even imagine. If this episode moved you, inspired you, or brought you closer to your truth, I'd love for you to share it with someone you know, or leave a review to help this work reach more souls who are ready to awaken. And before we go about the rest of our day, let's take one last breath together. Inhale deeply into your heart. And exhale to send gratitude out to your entire body. Until next time, may you walk gently, live boldly, and trust in the wisdom of your heart.